Hello and welcome to News 9. I'm Verghese Abraham. First up, we have some major stories coming in. The Prime Minister, in an interview to Dainik Jagran, gave responses on Ayodhya, Article 370 and breach in Parliament. Reacting on Ram Mandir inauguration, Prime Minister Modi said that it is his privilege and honour to be invited for the pious work. Prime Minister said that January 22nd will be the most important day in the lives of all Indians. The consecration ceremony at the Ram Temple in Ayodhya will be attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, along with hundreds of dignitaries. Reacting to the Supreme Court upholding the power of the President to abrogate Article 370, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi in fact said that no force in the universe can now reverse the August 2019 decision. He also warned people against politicizing the issue. Earlier, after the top court's verdict, Prime Minister Modi had called the move historic. In his first response on the recent Parliament security breach incident, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the Lok Sabha intrusion is a serious issue. However, he appealed that instead of launching debate or resistance in the matter, it is necessary to dig deep into the matter in order to find evidence and the real motive behind the incident, to find a solution to the problem. The Prime Minister also reportedly urged political parties to refrain from politicizing the issue as it is a matter of national security. The Prime Minister has also called for a thorough probe into the incident. He went on to say that what happened in the Parliament should not be taken lightly. This is the reason why the Speaker is looking into the incident with seriousness, is what he said. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Surat earlier, where he inaugurated two major projects. The Prime Minister inaugurated a new terminal of the Surat airport and also the Surat diamond bores. With 67 lakh square feet of floor area, the Surat diamond bores will become the world's largest corporate workplace, surpassing the Pentagon in the United States. Built at a cost of rupees 3,400 crores, the bores will also be the world's largest center for international diamond and jewelry business. The customs clearance house, the jewelry mall and the facility of international banking and safe vaults will be significant parts of the bores. During the inauguration ceremony, a replica of the diamond bores will also be gifted to Prime Minister Modi. The replica is made of 5 key metals, namely gold, silver, copper, iron and lead. Prime Minister Modi also launched the newly built terminal at the Surat airport. The newly integrated terminal building has been built at a cost of rupees 353 crores and will be capable of managing 1,200 domestic and 600 international passengers in an hour. The new terminal has been designed keeping the local culture and heritage in mind and has been given a look similar to heritage buildings, taking inspiration from the old Kashta houses.
दुनिया के सबसे तेजी से आगे बढ़ते टॉप 10 शहरों में है। सूरत का स्ट्रीट फूड, सूरत में स्वच्छता, सूरत में स्किल डेवलपमेंट का काम, सब कुछ शानदार होता रहा है। कभी सूरत की पहचान सन सिटी की थी। यहां के लोगों ने अपने परिश्रम में पूरी ताकत से मेहनत की पराकाष्ठा करके इसको डायमंड सिटी बनाया। मोदी ने देश को गारंटी दी है कि अपनी तीसरी पारी में भारत दुनिया की टॉप 3 इकोनॉमी में जरूर शामिल होगा। सरकार ने आने वाले 25 साल का भी टारगेट तय किया है। $5 ट्रिलियन का लक्ष्य हो, $10 ट्रिलियन का लक्ष्य हो, हम इन सभी पर काम कर रहे हैं। हम देश के एक्सपोर्ट को भी रिकॉर्ड ऊंचाई पर ले जाने के लिए काम कर रहे हैं।
The construction of Ram Temple in Ayodhya is in full swing ahead of the inauguration on January 22nd, 2024. On inauguration day, the Ram Lalla idol will be installed at the Sanctum Sanctorum and the final ritual in the Pran Pratishta will be done by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The doors installed at the Sanctum Sanctorum of the Ram Temple will be gold-plated and the installation will be completed by the first week of January. The Ram Temple Sanctum Sanctorum complex will have 46 doors, out of which 18 on the ground floor will be gold-plated. The gold-plated doors will be adding to the splendor of the Ram Temple. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with Yogi Adityanath, will be there during the inauguration of the temple on January 22nd, 2024. Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, on Sunday delivered the inaugural Justice E.S. Venkatramaya Sentinel Memorial Lecture. The CJI spoke on a variety of issues of prominence during his lecture. Talking about the issue of gender pay gap, CJI Chandrachud said that the gender pay gap was a much pronounced issue among Indian women. He highlighted that gender pay gap was even more prominent among those belonging to the marginalized community. Addressing the issue of rights of the physically handicapped people, CJI Chandrachud said that there are still societal biases existing in the society which perceive disability as a limitation. He said that disability often becomes a barrier denying individuals access to public opportunity. After facing humiliating defeat in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, the Congress party has swung into action to save itself from further embarrassment in the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. Congress on Saturday replaced veteran Kamal Nath with a younger face as state president in Madhya Pradesh. Congress replaces Kamal Nath with Jitu Patwari as MP president. Umang Singhar is the new MP Congress CLP. Meanwhile, in Chhattisgarh, the party did not assign legislature party leadership to former Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel. Congress went with Charan Singh Mahant as CLP leader instead of Bhupesh Baghel. The actions came following review meetings in Delhi earlier this month. The party also ensured a subtle balance of caste combination by bringing backward classes and tribal leaders to the top. Kamal Nath allegedly ran the Madhya Pradesh election campaign as per his understandings and did not heed to other advices coming in from the lower rung of the party. He has the face of the Congress campaign in MP and was unwilling to quit despite the central leadership indicating that it would be better if he offered to do so. The choice of the leaders in Madhya Pradesh is also a message to another veteran, Digvijay Singh, who has been hoping to launch his son Jaivardhan Singh's political career. The new COVID-19 subvariant JN1 could be more infectious than previous variants, and this is worrying scientists across the world. The JN1 strain of coronavirus has recently been detected in Kerala. Alarmed by the reports of fresh COVID cases in neighbouring Kerala, Karnataka government has decided to conduct mock drills in hospitals to check preparedness. The state government has also convened the Technical Advisory Committee on COVID-19 on Tuesday. On the rise in COVID cases in Kerala, Karnataka CM Siddaramaiah said that COVID is a matter of concern in the state and that he spoke to the Health Minister yesterday and suggested a meeting with experts to be held as soon as possible to take all kinds of action on this regard. Meanwhile, Kerala Health Minister Veena George said that COVID-19 subvariant JN1 detected in the state was not a cause of worry and said that the government had detected the subvariant due to genomic sequencing while emphasizing the state's strong health system.
Only thing is because number of cases have increased there, and Karnataka as of now today and in the entire state as per our records we have about 58 active cases, and in that 11 are in hospitalized and remaining are at home, and so far the last 3 months we have had one death due to COVID, but also they had other comorbidities. So the person who died had a lot of other issues, but also he had COVID. So that is one thing. But otherwise, we have already, taking precautionary measures. We have told to increase testing in all the hospitals and health centers. Who was coming with the symptoms of cough and flu and other COVID-like symptoms, respiratory infections, whatever that is there, for all of them to start testing for COVID. So RT-PCR kits, we need to get more. So we have already started the purchase for getting more RT-PCR kits and rapid antigen tests, all those kits that are necessary. We have some in stock, but we'll be requiring more. So we will ramp up testing. Then through that we will come to know whether the infections are there or on the rise or not.
In a tragic incident in Nagpur, 9 people have been killed and 3 injured in a blast at a solar explosive company near the Bazargaon village on Sunday. According to the officials, 12 workers were present inside the unit of the solar company when the blast took place. The explosion occurred at a cast booster plant of the firm. The company manufactures drones and explosives for the defense forces. Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis informed on the Twitter platform or on the X platform that several responsible authorities were coordinating with each other. Fadnavis also announced assistance of rupees 5 lakh to the kin of those killed in the incident. The cause of the explosion is yet to be determined.
सुबह 9 बजे रिपोर्ट हुआ कि एक प्रोसेस बिल्डिंग में प्रोडक्ट बनाते हैं बूस्टर्स जो कोल माइंस में यूज होता है। उस ऑपरेशंस में सीविंग ऑपरेशन होता है, तो कोई भी एक्सप्लोसिव में रॉ मटेरियल को सीव करके यूज किया जाता है। जब सीविंग कर रहे थे उसी समय यह घटना घटी। उसमें जो रिपोर्ट है 9 लोगों की मृत्यु का रिपोर्ट आया है। अभी फाइनल कंफर्मेशन जैसे हॉस्पिटल रिपोर्ट करता है कितनी एक्चुअल कंफर्मेशन है, बट प्राइमा फेसिया 9 लोग उसमें ट्रैप हुए थे, 9 लोगों की डेथ हुई है। अब कोई बिल्डिंग में नहीं है और सभी इवैक्यूएट कर दिया गया है, प्रशासन के कंट्रोल में है। पुलिस डिपार्टमेंट, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और जो भी कंट्रोलिंग अथॉरिटीज हैं सब फैक्ट्री के अंदर है। हमारे डायरेक्टर्स, हमारे सीनियर मैनेजमेंट स्टाफ भी वहां पे है। ये हमारी घटना हुई है। सभी को बाहर निकाल दिया गया है, सभी वर्कमैन को बाहर है। कोली मैनेजमेंट स्टाफ और कंपनी का मैनेजमेंट स्टाफ वहां पे है जो सिचुएशन को कंट्रोल किए हुए अंडर गाइडेंस ऑफ पुलिस एंड प्रशासन।
Chandigarh police used water cannon against Punjab Youth Congress workers protesting against the Punjab government over law and order situation. The workers wanted to go from Punjab Congress Bhavan in Sector 15 towards the Chief Minister's residence where they were supposed to submit a memorandum. But Chandigarh police barricaded the area near the Congress Bhavan to stop them and used water cannon on the protesters. Chandigarh police also detained the workers and took them away. The India Meteorological Department has predicted intense rainfall activity over extreme South Peninsular India till Monday. As per IMD, heavy rains have been predicted in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Lakshadweep during the next 2 days. Tamil Nadu, which is still reeling from the aftermath of Cyclone Michaung, are set to see another spell of heavy rains. The southern districts of Tamil Nadu, including Tirunelveli, Kanyakumari and Ramanathapuram, has been witnessing heavy rains since the early morning hours of Sunday. Heavy rains in Tirunelveli created flood-like situations in the area. IMD has also predicted light to moderate rain at few places over South Tamil Nadu, at 1 or 2 places over North Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Karaikal from 19th to 22nd December. These are the visuals coming in from Tirunelveli, where the town is said to have been completely flooded. There is operations being carried out by the local municipality to drain the water out from certain areas, especially in low-lying areas. However, the central part of the town is said to have been completely flooded, especially in the market areas. We slip into a short break now. We in fact tell you how diamonds are becoming an issue with regards to the distress it is facing.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Sunday attended a Decade of Change event at the Rotary Institute in Bengaluru. On Canada and US, S. Jaishankar said that everybody knows India is very responsible, very prudent country, referring to the recent allegations of plots to murder pro-Khalistan elements in the United States and Canada. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Sunday said that the two issues weren't the same, drawing a distinction between the allegations. He said India is always ready to look into specific issues raised by the other countries.
I think everybody knows that, India is a country where we are very responsible, very prudent on what we do. And the whole issue for us has been that we have always maintained that if any country, not just Canada, if any country has a concern and gives us some input or some basis for that concern, we are always open to look at it. This is what countries do. The point was, when Americans brought up some issues, and the two issues are not, necessarily the same. Let me also say that. When they brought up that issue, the Americans told us some specific things. So, if you look at what happens in international relations, from time to time, such challenges can arise. So we very sincerely have told the Canadians, saying that, look, it's up to you. I mean, your choice whether you would like us to pursue it further, look into it or not.
Well, commenting on India's relations with neighbouring countries, including China, as Jaishankar said that there are some neighbouring relationships which are a problem, but suggested that the one with Pakistan is actually an exception. And China, he said that India would certainly like to see the relationship be better than what is today.
Even if you and I sit down together, we are bound to differ after 20 minutes of conversation. So, it's something we must also be realistic in our expectations of our neighbors and not give them a sense that we are too demanding in this regard. On China, yes, I would say logically India and China as two old civilizations which are again becoming, coming to the center stage of international politics, there is a lot that we have in common. We would certainly like our relationship with China to be better than what it is today. But if things have taken a turn for the more difficult in the last 3 years, it's not because of us. It is because they have chosen not to observe the agreements on the border. But again, diplomacy is, however difficult your neighbors, however challenging they are, you never give up. We keep working at that relationship and hope that we can get something done better.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar compared the United Nations Security Council with an old club, saying that the latter is not keen to admit more member states and they don't want to let go of their control.
Security Council is like an old club where there are set members who don't want to let go of the grip. Okay? So they want to keep control over the club, not very keen to admit more members, not too keen to have their practices questioned. In a way, it's a human failing, but I think today it is harming the world. It is harming the world because on key issues confronting the world, the UN is getting less and less effective. So, and I can also tell you the global sentiment. I mean, today, if you ask 200 countries in the world, do you want reform or don't you want reform? Very large number of countries would say, yes, we want reform. Because what was invented at a time when the membership of the UN was about 50 countries. So imagine a business which has grown 4 times, and yet you don't want to change the original promoter of the business. It's not fair. And I think there's a realization of that. So I'm sure it will happen. We will keep at it. But I do believe that history is on our side in that regard.
Well, it's day 72 of the Israel-Hamas war.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Well, the war between Israel and Hamas has now entered the 72nd day. Let's get you the latest update from the war front. IDF CDS has said that he takes the responsibility for the deaths of the 3 Israeli hostages, which has led to protests in Israel. Israel did not have intelligence on hostages mistakenly killed, is what the IDF has said in a statement. Israeli hostages killed in Gaza were holding white flag, again according to an IDF statement. Netanyahu, meanwhile, has said that he will continue the war until he gains victory. Netanyahu hints at negotiations for release of more hostages. Thousands have called for immediate return of remaining hostages. An Israeli soldier was killed in an attack from southern Lebanon. This is a casualty being reported from Israel's northern border. An Israeli official has said that 3 hostages mistakenly killed by Israeli soldiers were holding a white flag. The news prompted protests in Israel. Here's a full report.
3 Israeli hostages mistakenly killed by Israeli forces in Gaza had been holding up a white flag, a military official said on Saturday. Yotam Haim, Sama al-Talalka and Alon Shamriz have been named as those killed in Shujaiya, an eastern suburb of Gaza City. News of their deaths on Friday prompted a late-night protest outside Israel's defense headquarters in Tel Aviv. Among the protesters was Zohar Avigdori, a relative of another hostage.
My reaction, first of all, was grief. These are families that I know personally and people that have been waiting so hopefully for their loved ones to return. And to me, it struck me in the heart, showing me that there's got to be a deal right now to bring them back.
On Saturday, an Israeli official gave a phone briefing on an initial inquiry into the incident. He said the 3 hostages were not wearing shirts and had a stick with a white cloth on it, but that a soldier had felt threatened and declared that they were terrorists. The official said 2 of the hostages were killed immediately when Israeli forces then opened fire. The 3rd was wounded, the official said, and retreated into a nearby building where he called for help in Hebrew. According to the official, the battalion commander issued a ceasefire order, but there was another burst of fire and the 3rd hostage was killed. This was against our rules of engagement, the official added. Hamas militants rampaged through Israeli towns on October 7th, killing 1,200 people, according to Israel, and capturing 240 hostages. Close to 19,000 people have been killed in Israel's subsequent bombardment of Gaza, according to Gaza health authorities. More than 100 women, children, teens and foreigners held hostage were released in a deal struck in late November. Other hostages have been declared dead by Israeli authorities, but many remain captive. A funeral for one of the hostages, Sama al-Talalka, took place on Saturday in Hura in southern Israel. Around 300 people turned up to bid farewell, including his cousin, who told Israel's public broadcaster Khan that they had so many hopes and expectations that al-Talalka would come back to us. "We are not going to start pointing fingers," Alaa al-Talalka said. "It is not the time," adding, "This is the time to ask for the war to end."
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Gaza will be neither Hamastan nor Fatahstan, emphasizing his opposition to return of Western-backed Palestinian Authority rule under President Mahmoud Abbas. Netanyahu said Israel enjoys U.S. support for its goals of destroying Hamas and rescue hostages held by Hamas. He, however, added that the allies differ about what might follow the Gaza war. A senior Palestinian Authority official said that the comments made by Israel's Prime Minister equating the Oslo Accords to what happened on October 7th confirms his war against all Palestinians.
אני מאוד מעריך את התמיכה האמריקנית, הן להשמדת החמאס והן להחזרת חטופינו. אחרי שיח אינטנסיבי עם הנשיא ביידן ואנשיו, קיבלנו גיבוי מלא, גם לכניסה הקרקעית וגם בבלימת הלחצים הבינלאומיים להפסקת המלחמה. כן, יש מחלוקות לגבי היום שאחרי חמאס, ואני מקווה שנגיע להסכמה גם כאן. אני רוצה להבהיר את עמדתי. אני לא אתן לישראל לחזור על טעות אוסלו. לא אתן שאחרי ההקרבה האדירה של אזרחינו ולוחמינו נכניס לעזה מי שמחנך לטרור, תומך בטרור, מממן טרור. עזה לא תהיה לא חמאסטן ולא פתחסטן.
We still put a short break now. News and updates will continue on the other side.
With all this gear, you must be wondering if I'm climbing a mountain. Well, let me give you a wider look of this place. This is Asia's largest mountain of shame.
A mountain of waste, almost the height of the Qutub Minar.
When you enter capital cities of some of the biggest countries in the world, you don't have three garbage mountains waiting to welcome you, depending on whichever side of the city you enter from.
The thing is that a lot of times we talk about landfills only when there's a fire at the landfill. You need to understand that a landfill is at fire almost throughout the year. It's only when the firefighters are not able to douse the fire is when it actually catches the nation's attention, the city's attention, or media attention.
The towering landfills worsen one of Delhi's biggest problems: pollution.
यहाँ पर आप रात को आओ, दिन में आओ, आप 1 घंटे बैठ नहीं सकते बाहर। इतनी धूल, प्रदूषण, महक, आप खाना भी नहीं खा सकते बाहर बैठ के।
Life around the landfill is a curse.
हमारे घर में जो बड़े हैं उन्हें अस्थमा के वो पेशेंट है, आए दिन उनको नेबुलाइजर लगाना पड़ता है।
डॉक्टर ने मुझे ये चीज बोला कि यहाँ का एरिया छोड़ के कहीं और चाहिए।
Delhi's garbage mountains are now a fetid symbol of the national capital's trash problem. The question is, who is to be blamed? Watch Delhi's Garbage Mountains. Streaming on News 9 Plus for the Genflix.
Since the last 2 years, Khalistani terror groups are threatening Indian diplomats in Canada, US, UK and Australia. Investigations of these threats led us to the first ever abduction and killing of an Indian diplomat, Ravindra Matre, in UK's Birmingham in 1984. Our months-long investigation finally led us to the murderer of Ravindra Matre, who has been hiding in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir for the last 40 years. Watch our exclusive documentary, Murder of an Indian Diplomat, where we reveal the man who killed Ravindra Matre.
Stop searching. Start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus. Ahead of the curve.
Benjamin Netanyahu hinted at ongoing Qatar-mediated negotiations to rescue hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. This hint followed reports that Israel's lead negotiator had met with Qatar's Prime Minister. The development of the new negotiations surfaced after Israel's military revealed that troops had accidentally killed 3 hostages who approached them with a white flag after having escaped their captors in Gaza on Friday. Netanyahu vowed to maintain intense military pressure on Hamas in Gaza. Take a look.
אנחנו במלחמה על קיומנו. במלחמה זו חייבים להמשיך עד לניצחון. על אף הלחצים הבינלאומיים וגם על אף המחיר הכבד מנשוא שהמלחמה גובה מאיתנו בנפול בנינו ובנותינו היקרים. הלחץ הצבאי לא היינו מצליחים לייצר מתווה שהביא לשחרור של 110 חטופים, ורק המשך הלחץ הצבאי יביא לשחרור כל חטופינו. ההנחיה שאני נותן לצוות המשא ומתן מבוססת על הלחץ הזה, ובלעדיו אין לנו כלום. אחרי חיסול החמאס, רצועת עזה תהיה מפורזת. היא תהיה בשליטה ביטחונית של ישראל, ולא יהיה בה שום גורם שיאיים עלינו, ושום גורם שיחנך את ילדיו להשמדתנו. יש טעות אחת שאנחנו יכולים לעשות, וזה לשדר לחמאס ולעולם את השיקולים שלנו, את הדיונים שלנו. זה דבר שהוא בלתי נתפס שזה קורה לכאורה, אני לא מתכוון להיות שותף לזה. אנחנו מנהלים את זה בצורה מאוד מושכלת, מאוד תקיפה. להפסיק את הלחימה, לסלק את כוחותינו, יש להם כל מיני דרישות. אז מה? אנחנו מבינים את זה. ברגע שאנחנו ניכנע לזה, חמאס ניצח. ואנחנו מחויבים גם לחסל אותו וגם להחזיר את חטופינו. אבל אנחנו לא נוותר. לא על היעד הזה ולא על היעד הזה. פועלים גם עם קטר וגם עם מצרים. יש לנו ביקורת קשה על קטר. אתה עוד, אני מניח, תשמע אותה. אבל כרגע אנחנו מנסים להשלים את המהלך של שחרור חטופינו.
Well, families and supporters of hostages still captive in Gaza demanded that Israel present an offer to Hamas to return their loved ones unharmed. A freed Israeli hostage stated that she warned the Israeli cabinet that the fighting in Gaza would harm the hostages. The family of hostages gathered in Tel Aviv a day after 3 hostages were mistakenly killed by Israeli forces in Gaza.
לפני 10 ימים הגעתי לפגישה עם חברי הקבינט. התחננתי בפני הקבינט. וכולנו הזהרנו שלחימה עלולה לגרום לפגיעה בחטופים. לצערי צדקתי. אני ניצלתי. אך אם המתווה לשחרור החטופים היה נדחה בשבוע, אולי לא הייתי פה. החטופים חווים שם תופת ונמצאים בסכנת חיים ממשית. כל יום, כל שעה, כל דקה היא קריטית. ישראל חייבת להניח מתווה פעימות נוסף ולרתום את העולם לקידומו.
The Israeli army's casualties in Gaza are nearly double those from the 2014 ground offensive. The escalation is attributed to the army's deep incursion into Gaza and Hamas's effective use of guerrilla tactics and an expanded weapons arsenal. Israel military experts, a commander from Israel and a Hamas source have detailed how the Palestinian group utilizes substantial weapons stockpile, terrain knowledge and an extensive tunnel network to transform Gaza's streets into a hazardous labyrinth. They deploy a range of weaponry including drones equipped with grenades and anti-tank weapons with potent twin charges. The conflict, ongoing since late October, had resulted in about 110 Israeli soldiers killed compared to 66 in 2014. The current campaign faces challenges, particularly in dealing with an extensive tunnel network. The situation involves advanced weaponry on both sides, with Hamas demonstrating increased capabilities and tactics in urban warfare. The conflict shows no sign of immediate resolution, with Israel committed to pursuing the campaign until absolute victory. Plumes of dark smoke were seen rising from Gaza's skyline from southern Israel on Sunday as fighting continued in the Gaza Strip. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appeared to confirm that new Qatar-mediated negotiations were underway to rescue the hostages held by Hamas in Gaza after a source said that Israel's lead negotiator had met with Qatar's Prime Minister. Israeli tanks and forces withdrew from the hospital in northern Gaza on Saturday, leaving behind chaotic scenes as distressed civilians who said they have nowhere to go were searching for bodies under the rubble.
They entered the hospital. They entered the hospital via the gates. They called for displaced families and people and patients from age 16 to 65 to go out of the hospital. This happened on the first day the tanks entered Kamal Adwan Hospital. The day after, they started to search inside the hospital. Around 7 or 7:30, they raided the building and they took all the employees for investigation. Also, the injured people were being investigated. There were 6 bodies and a 60-year-old patient who died. They took these bodies. I don't know what they did with them. According to employees, they burnt the bodies. I am not sure, but this is what the employees said. But also, where are the bodies? They were here. We searched for them, but we didn't find them.
Former US President Donald Trump has once again reiterated upon his anti-immigrant stance. Trump, who's also been seen as a front-runner for the 2024 presidential election, said that undocumented immigrants were quote-unquote poisoning the blood of our country. Trump made the comments during a campaign event in New Hampshire where he rallied against the record number of immigrants attempting to cross the US border illegally. Now, this is not the first time that Trump has used this kind of harsh language against the immigrants. Trump has previously too drawn criticism from his anti-immigrants comments, which has been termed as xenophobic and as those which echo the Nazi rhetoric. Trump has made immigration as a big issue for 2024 election run and has promised to crack down on illegal immigration and also to restrict legal immigration into the United States.
You know, when they let, I think the real number is 15, 16 million people into our country, when they do that, we got a lot of work to do. They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world. They're pouring into our country. Nobody's even looking at them. They just come in.
Donald Trump continues to lead the race for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, securing over half of the party's voter support, recent opinion polls have revealed. Now, Trump has been impeached twice, tried to thwart the peaceful transfer of power after losing the 2020 presidential election, faces scores of charges in multiple criminal cases, and this critics warn he is plotting to rule as an autocrat, yet he could still return to White House. Here's why.
The election of 24 is the single most important election in the history of our country.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been impeached twice, tried to thwart the peaceful transition of power after losing in 2020.
We will never concede.
And faces scores of charges in multiple criminal cases.
I am being indicted for you.
But with less than a year to go until the U.S. election,
make America great again.
Trump currently stands a better chance at returning to the White House than at any point since he left office.
Incredible people. Thank you.
He leads his rivals for the Republican presidential nomination by nearly 50 points in national opinion polls. Here's 4 reasons why he could win the November 2024 election against Democratic incumbent Joe Biden. The White House argues the economy is in good shape. Unemployment is down to a near historic low of 3.9%, compared to 6.3% when Trump left office. Inflation is cooling. But with wages not keeping up to the cost of essential goods and services, many voters don't believe it. And opinion polls show voters by a large margin see Republicans as better stewards of the economy. Trump also speaks to the worries, real or not, that many white Americans have in a country that's becoming more diverse and culturally progressive. There's a sense that some of the key benchmarks of American life, owning a home, a decent wage, and a college education, are becoming further from reach. Polls show voters are worried about crime and nervous about the flow of migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally. Trump is adept at harnessing those fears. Democrats and critics in Trump's own party argue he's unfit for office. But at least half of Republicans surveyed by Reuters Ipsos earlier this year said they would have no problem voting for Trump even if he were convicted of a crime. The former president can also point to his time in office and argue the machinery of government largely functioned, if at times chaotically. Despite heavy government investment in infrastructure, clean energy, and chip manufacturing, the White House has not been able to persuade much of the public that Biden's job creation policies have made a difference to their lives. There are also two foreign wars dividing Americans. Trump's America First message could resonate with voters wary of more involvement in Ukraine or Israel.
I could be dictator again.
But Trump does remain deeply unpopular in many parts of the country. And his fiery rhetoric could turn off moderate Republicans or independent voters. If he becomes the nominee, it could also provoke a high turnout for Democrats against him.
Kuwait's Emir Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Sabah died on Saturday, aged at 86. This just is over 3 years after assuming power in the oil-rich Middle Eastern nation. Kuwait's crown prince and his half-brother Sheikh Faisal Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah has been subsequently named the new Emir.
Kuwait's Emir Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Sabah died on Saturday, aged 86, according to the royal court, just over 3 years after assuming power in the US-allied Gulf oil producer. The cause of his death was not immediately disclosed. The Emir was admitted to hospital late last month due to what the state news agency described at the time as an emergency health problem, but said that he was in a stable condition. Crown Prince Sheikh Faisal Al Ahmed Al Sabah, who has been Kuwait's de facto ruler since 2021, when the frail Emir handed over most of his duties, was named as Sheikh Nawaf's successor. Nawaf became Emir in September 2020, following the death of his brother Sheikh Sabah, who had ruled for more than a decade and shaped the state's foreign policy for over 50 years. Sheikh Nawaf was seen by diplomats as a consensus builder, even though his reign was marked by an intense standoff between the government and elected parliament, which had hindered key structural reforms in the oil-rich Gulf state. In recent months, consensus returned between the government and the parliament. Under Kuwait's constitution, the crown prince automatically becomes emir, but assumes power only after taking an oath in parliament. The new emir has up to a year to name an heir.
Well, the funeral of Kuwait's late Emir Sheikh Nawaf Al Sabah took place on Sunday. Attendees played, in fact, beside his coffin at the Bilal bin Rabah Mosque in Al Sadiq, followed by the burial, which took place at the Sulabikat Cemetery. A 40-day official mourning period and a 3-day closure of all the government departments has been announced following the death of the Emir. Taiwan's upcoming presidential and parliamentary elections in January highlight the generational rifts over the island's relationship with China. Take a look.
As Taiwan prepares to vote in the presidential and parliamentary elections next month, polls reveal deep divisions between generations towards its relationship with China. At this government-run veterans' care home in northern Taiwan, this former soldier's chest tattoo of the island's flag carries the complexities of those ties. Wang Zhiquan, who is 93, joined the Chinese army when he was only 13 and holds tragic memories of war.
I still dare not watch the news when I watch TV. War is cruel and cold. When I started serving as a soldier, people were forced to enlist during the civil war between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party. When they couldn't catch adults, they would catch children.
Defeated in the Chinese Civil War, the nationalist Kuomintang government fled to Taiwan 7 odd decades ago, but no peace treaty was ever signed to end the war. China's communist government has since been pushing for what it calls reunification with Taiwan and has ramped up its military pressure against the island in the past few years, stoking fears of a war that could drag in the United States. Those tensions are dominating election campaigns in the run-up to Taiwan's January 13th ballot. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party champions the island's separate identity from China. But despite moving to Taiwan and later fighting for its island of Kinmen, Wang's sense of identity remains tied to China.
Taiwan is a part of China. It has been since the Qing and Ming dynasties.
It's a view shared by many from his generation, like fellow care home resident Sun Guoxi. The 110-year-old veteran believes his current government is being provocative. He warns that if a conflict breaks out, the island would be no match for China. Yet their views conflict with mainstream Taiwan, who overwhelmingly view themselves as Taiwanese and not Chinese, according to polls. He is political scientist Song Wen-ti.
There is certainly a generational shift. The older generation was a lot more likely to be for unification, and the younger generation a lot less likely. The younger people tend to have a separate, almost distinct Taiwanese national identity as opposed to a more Chinese national identity. So in that sense, the trend lines on support for unification is a downward one, less and less support for unification over time.
The main opposition party, the pro-China KMT, has cast the election as a choice between war and peace, a line Beijing has echoed. But as campaigning heats up, some in Taiwan are hoping to mend rifts rather than further the divide. As this 22-year-old says, "We can only try our best to understand the others and learn why they might have certain ideas. Even if we can't agree with each other, as humans, we should still be able to talk normally."
Serbians began casting their votes on Sunday in a snap parliamentary election seen as an effort by President Alexander Vučić and his populist Serbian Progressive Party to secure another 4-year term after 2 mass shootings earlier this year rattled their popularity. Voters were divided on Serbian President Alexander Vučić's Serbian Progressive Party during the snap parliamentary election, while some expressed satisfaction, others highlighted concerns about crime and corruption, claiming that SNS had not fulfilled promises. A total of 18 parties and alliances were vying for the support of 6.5 million strong electorate for the 250 seats in parliament. The threshold for entering the parliament is 3% of the votes. President Alexander Vučić has also been among the voters, as was the opposition leader Dragan Đilas. Đilas is the leader of Serbia's opposition party of Freedom and Justice. Vučić and SNS are aiming for another 4-year long term, and allegations of voter bribery, media restriction, violence, corruption and ties to organized crime, which they deny. Cardinal Angelo, the most senior Catholic Church official ever to stand trial before a Vatican criminal court, was convicted on Saturday of embezzlement and fraud and sentenced to 5.5 years in jail. His lawyer told the reporters he would appeal, saying his client was innocent.
Cardinal Angelo Becciu, the most senior Catholic Church official ever to stand trial before a Vatican criminal court, was convicted on Saturday of embezzlement and sentenced to 5.5 years in jail. The trial exposed infighting and intrigue in the highest echelons of the Vatican and revolved mostly around a murky Vatican investment in a Tony London property. The court said Becciu had been irresponsible and, quote, highly speculative to invest more than $200 million in a fund connected to the building about 10 years ago. The Vatican sold the building last year, taking an estimated loss of about 140 million euros or $150 million. Becciu's lawyer said he would appeal the decision.
Yes, a conviction came. We will read the grounds. We believe that the trial has proven the Cardinal's absolute innocence, an innocence in which we believe, and I repeat, that we believe has been proven in the course of the hearing.
9 other officials also faced charges in a case that stretched over 2.5 years with 86 courtroom hearings. Only one was acquitted of all counts. Becciu, who was stripped of his title by Pope Francis in 2020, was also accused of funneling money and contracts to companies or charities controlled by his brothers on their native island of Sardinia. Another accusation involved his hiring of a woman who described herself as a security analyst, also from Sardinia, as part of a secret project to help win freedom for a nun who had been kidnapped in Mali. Becciu and the woman were both found guilty of aggravated fraud related to the transfer of money. Becciu, who lives in the Vatican, was expected to remain free for now.
Now let's understand how the COP28 deal got done. In a historic move at COP28 in Dubai, countries led by Conference President Sultan Al Jaber have agreed to transition away from fossil fuels. Key players, including US climate envoy John Kerry, deem it a pivotal moment. Despite initial concerns, strategic diplomacy and collaboration paved the way for a groundbreaking global agreement to combat climate change. Have a look.
We have now reached the end.
For the first time in history, countries have expressed a desire to end the oil age. The COP28 accord from the summit in Dubai calls for transitioning away from fossil fuels. Key players, including conference president Sultan Al Jaber, say it's historic.
You delivered.
This is a sea change moment.
I think this is a global turning point.
Fossil fuels phase out! Some remain dissatisfied with concessions allowing for the use of tech such as carbon capture to keep greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. But striking a deal was by no means a foregone conclusion. Here's a look at how the COP28 deal got done.
I promised I would roll up my sleeves.
Before the conference, COP28 President Al Jaber was pilloried by environmental activists as untrustworthy. He runs the United Arab Emirates State Oil Company. But he didn't want to oversee a failed conference. Before it started, his office pumped up climate initiatives, like an EU and US-led declaration by nations to triple renewable energy capacity by 2030.
The urgency of this moment is clear.
And a US-China cooperation agreement reached in November. Sources say getting a deal took deft maneuvering by the conference host, as well as back-channel diplomacy from the top envoys of the world's biggest polluters, the US and China. Al Jaber intentionally stirred the pot, sources say. His approach was to put out deliberately provocative drafts for a deal that forced negotiators to reveal the outer limits of their positions, then find common ground. On December 11th, Al Jaber's draft deal outlined a broad menu of options that countries could, not should, take to fight climate change. Those options ranged from carbon capture to reducing fossil fuel use or cutting subsidies. Missing was any mention of a phase-out. That sparked outrage, including from small island nations.
We will not sign our gift certificate. It is our very survival that is at stake.
While scores of countries came to Dubai wanting language around phasing out fossil fuels entirely, it was something oil group OPEC particularly opposed. But the outrage expressed at the summit was the desired effect, according to one source, who said the move made clear where people stood.
Mr. Kerry.
The presidency then took meetings into the early morning hours over the next days.
We're going to work.
What's going on?
And did not release an updated draft until December 13th. A day after the summit's scheduled end. The term phase out remained a red line that some like China and Saudi Arabia would never accept. So U.S. envoy John Kerry and his Chinese counterpart Xie Jinhua found a workaround. They already had a roadmap from their recent climate cooperation in November. Use words that essentially mean the same thing as phase out. With China and the U.S. aligned, it was just a matter of getting OPEC on board. One source said it was Kerry, China, and the Saudis that played a constructive role at the 11th hour. A source familiar with the negotiations said the final flurry of diplomacy ensured the deal would pass.
Australian authorities issued urgent evacuation advisories for residents in North Queensland due to the risk of flooding from heavy rains caused by ex-tropical cyclone Jasper. Now, major flooding hit suburbs of Cairns, a popular tourist destination, prompting emergency alerts. Residents were urged to move to higher ground immediately as the approaching high tide and continuous rainfall raised the risk of further flooding. The weather forecaster warned of dangerous and life-threatening flash floods in Cairns, and water levels were expected to surpass the 1971 record flood peak. The region experienced power outages, excavations, as well as disruptions to services. Daintree village, about 120 kilometers north of Cairns, also faced flooding with significant rainfall. The weather system's stall heightened the risk, emphasizing the need for residents' safety. Australia, which is currently under the El Nino condition, faces extreme weather events like wildfires and cyclones. A severe storm has struck Florida, bringing heavy rainfall and strong winds to the coastal areas. Videos from Hollywood, Florida depict turbulent waves, swaying palm trees and flooded parking lots. According to the local reports, approximately 17 million residents of Jacksonville, Orlando and Tampa face the risk of several and severe weather conditions. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has directed the state's emergency management to monitor the low-pressure system heading towards southwest Florida. Additionally, he activated the Florida State Guard to be prepared for potential impacts. The storm has prompted authorities to take proactive measures to address potential risk and ensure public safety. We slip into a short break now. News and updates will continue on the other side.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.